Thank you everyone for joining the State of Paper Cup Recycling webinar today. My name is Melissa Radowan from RRS. I will be your technical behind the scenes host today. I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. All attendees are muted, so we can't hear you, but we want to hear from you. So please use the Q&A button to submit questions. I will note there is a little bit of a difference between the Q&A button and the chat button. The Q&A button will allow us to get your questions organized, so our moderator will be able to ask those questions of our panelists and get those all organized and ready to go. We have, apologize, I had a little technical forwarding here. Our moderator today, please let me introduce Ashley Elsinga. Ashley is the Director of Sustainability and Outreach for the Food Service Packaging Institute. FPI is the Association for the North American Food Service Packaging Industry. At FPI, her work primarily focuses around communications, outreach, and FPI's recovery efforts. Prior to joining the association, she worked in the sustainability and environmental fields. Please help me welcome Ashley. Ashley, I'm going to take it from here.
Great. Thanks, Melissa. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today to discuss the journey of paper cup recycling. We've come a long way in the past few years, and I'm super excited to talk about it today with our panelists. So as Melissa said, my name is Ashley Elsinga. I'm the Director of Sustainability and Outreach for FPI. Before I introduce our speakers, I'd just like to kind of give a little background on who FPI is, who we are, and kind of what we do. So we were established in 1933. We are the only industry association in North America that's focused on food service packaging. And what is food service packaging? So food service packaging are your items that are prepared on site and passed over the counter. So if you think of your cups, plates, bowls, clamshell containers, utensils, pizza boxes, straws, things like that. Those are food service packaging items. Our members include the manufacturers of those items, the raw material suppliers, and the machinery suppliers. We also help represent some restaurants. They obviously have a very vested interest in food service packaging, and then also distributors as well. So. And just to kind of set the stage for this story, the story of circularity and sustainability for food service packaging is that a lot of times I think the message gets lost of like, well, what is the primary role of food service packaging? And the primary role of food service packaging is to protect the product so that the consumers can enjoy it and it stays safe for them. And it's safe for not just the end user, but also the employees that are working. So listed here, I'm not going to go through them all, but these are some of the key attributes that food service packaging has to play. These are key roles. And that's a lot to ask out of a package sometimes. And on top of it being sustainable and circular. So just to keep in mind that the main goal of a package is to help protect the product, and it's convenient for the end user to use. So FPI, we do have a separate recovery group. It's a voluntary recovery group. It's a voluntary effort that's funded by the members that you see here. We will have one of our members, Graphic Packaging. They will be talking about their paper cup journey. Next slide, please. And then, we started the recovery groups about a decade ago now. And this is just to give you guys a visual of all the questions that we've asked and all the gray area that was around food service packaging and still kind of is around food service packaging. We were asking, what about food residue? Well, how much food service packaging is there? And we've answered all those questions, and all of that is available online on our website, recyclefoodservicepackaging.org. We have that data, and it's really foundational to the work that we do, and it helps inform the infrastructure investments that we're able to do today. So And those infrastructure investments, those come in the form of our community partnerships. Sometimes we have to add, we have to provide funding to MRFs or communities for, for an intervention. So that might be an optical sorter or a robot. These are the community partners that we've had to date. We have a lot coming in 2022 that I'm really, really excited about. And, just to point out the community partners that have the asterisks are with in partnership with Carton Council, because paper cups and cartons are very similar. They're a polycoated paper. So where it makes sense to partner with other organizations that align with our vision, we do that. So that's very important to us, and making sure that we're able to partner with other organizations. And then the strategy for our work, we work backwards. We want to make sure that there is viable and sound end markets for the material that we are trying to include into the recycling stream. So, we ensure to work end market acceptance. So in terms of paper cups, those are the paper mills that we'll be hearing from today. And then we try and work with MRFs. I mentioned, adding that investment in infrastructure if needed, working with the waste haulers and the communities. And with the communities, we do provide an education grant for communications to show that, education is really big with a lot. Sometimes you have to hear it 5 or 6 times to make sure that information sticks. So, we really want to make sure that we're educating residents about these new products being able to be recycled. And then this was one in Detroit. We launched November last year for paper cups in association with Carton Council. And this is just some of the social media and ads. We were able to give them flyers and really help with elevating their recycling campaign. And then Bill Moore will actually talk about this a little bit later, but last year as well, we had 8 paper mills come together to say, hey, we want your paper cups in our mixed paper and our polycoated bales. So that was a big that was a big thing for these mills to come together like that, because they are competitors as well. And so it was a great moment, and we're very proud of them coming together, that they were able to state, hey, we're working together to promote the circularity of these products. So if you guys have any further questions regarding food service packaging, please feel free to reach out to me. There's my email. I'll also put it at the end of this presentation. But with that, joining me today talking about paper cup recycling is we have Bill Moore. He just released a white paper. He is the president of Moore and Associates. Next, we have Julie Lafon, plant engineer from Great Lakes Tissue, to talk about their process for recycling polycoated material. And then we have Mike Farrel, Executive Vice President of the Mills Division at Graphic Packaging International, and he will discuss the journey that paper cups took to get them into their recycled stream. So with that, Bill Moore, President of Moore and Associates. He's an international consulting firm providing a range of strategic services and research to the paper recycling industry. At Moore and Associates, Bill has served over 300 clients on more than 500 projects. Mr. Moore's knowledge base includes all aspects of the worldwide supply and demand of recovered paper. Prior to Moore, he has led a series of positions in solid waste, paper, and recycling, including the founder and vice president of the Paper Recycling International and the first director of recycling for waste management. Safe to say you are an expert in your field, Bill, and we are looking forward to hearing from you. So please take it away.
Okay, Ashley, thanks very much. So it's nice to see the very large and diverse audience here today. And this journey started for us well over a year ago, doing research and has led up to production of the white paper. And this presentation will take us through some of the high points of that. Next slide. So the first step in paper cup recycling, 50% of single-serve packaging generated by food service location makes its way back to the home. So it's important to look at residential, and 70% of the paper cups. And going back as early as 2006, the food service organizations were discussing how to make single-use packaging more sustainable. And then between 2009 and 2011, a number of cup summit strategy sessions were held, including multiple stakeholders, leading to pilot programs of in-store recycling in 18 markets across the US. And in some cities, design contests were initiated for in-store collection bins. And in other markets, cups were collected and made into molded fiber food service trays. Then another step was a series of paper mills across the US began testing the viability of cups to be repulped and used as raw materials in their process. And then the final bullet here, Emmett County, Michigan was the first to allow cups in residential recycling, followed by Seattle, New York, and San Francisco. So cups in recovered paper, post-consumer cups can be found in several of the Institute for Scrap Recycling Industries standard grade designation. They can go into number 37 sorted office papers. They can be found in number 52 aseptic packaging and gable top cartons, commonly called cartons. Number 54 residential mixed paper, and specifically the residential mixed version. And also in number 56 sorted residential paper and news. So the volume of cups used in the US is about 683,000 tons per year. Actually, just a little bit more than aseptic and cable top cartons. They're in the same ballpark for tonnage. And in terms of recovery, for comparison, the annual generation of the ISRI grade shown on the left, residential mixed paper at just over 4 million tons, sorted office paper, SOP, at 2.5 million tons, and number 56 sorted residential paper news at 1.9 million tons, almost 2 million tons. So you can see that these are some fairly big numbers in all those categories. So after the collection step, paper cups go to the MRF. And the majority of the paper cups are made from solid bleach sulfate, what we in the industry called SBS, which is white fiber paperboards, and cups have primarily polyethylene coatings. And this SBS fiber is a good source of fiber for the mills when the mills are able to handle the polycoated coating and when the cups are effectively sorted in the right streams at the MRF. And the vast majority of MRFs that accept cups do pack them in mixed paper, although some quantities may wind up in SOP, SRPN, cartons, or other de-inking products. In mixed paper, cups account for a very small percentage of typical bale weight, usually less than 0.5%. If cups are positively sorted into a bale and into other grades, they can make up from 10 to 25% of the combined polycoated paper boards. So how do cups flow through MRF? From the MRF perspective, 3 things are necessarily needed to sort paper cups. One is a demand for the end market. We always start out with the end market first. And then partnership with a local municipality or community to ensure there's resident education and awareness about the opportunity to recycle cups. And then an assessment of how will the cups flow through the MRF sorting operation. And there were a number of flow studies done over the last several years that show the majority of paper cups flow into the container line. But this is strongly influenced by the screening technology in place and size, weight of the cup, and the design of the MRFs. More recently, in the last year plus, MRFs have begun to invest a lot in optical sorting and in some cases robots in order to improve the ability to pull out paper cups and other food service packaging and other small volume packaging. And the investment, it's been gradual because of low mixed paper prices for a time and the need to develop end markets. But with them recently, a year and a half, much improved mixed paper prices and old corrugated containers, growth in technology investment at the MRF is starting to move rapidly. So what are the challenges at the MRF? Initially, MRFs were concerned about food contamination, and that's why FPI did some of that early research work on food residue. And research has shown by the time the cups make it to the MRF, the liquids are usually gone. And paper cups might have lids, straws, stir sticks, and the plastic components are these kind of plastics are also present in other packaging. But both the MRFs and mills have improved their processes to be able to deal with and remove the plastics from the paper stream. One of the biggest challenges is whether the MRF sort residential or commercial is the cups really are a very low volume material, and many MRFs are unable to really assign a cost to sorting and baling of cups. But ultimately, which grade to target is a business decision made by the local MRF and the end market. And when there's a positive business case, MRFs may aggregate cups and sell them as higher value grades than the mixed paper. And as manufacturers and legislators look to improve sustainability packaging and expand recycling of small volume package types, we expect policies to evolve over time in favor of including cups and other polycoated packaging in curbside recycling. So technical considerations in cup recycling. I've mentioned the SBS fibers early on in this presentation, and they really are some of the highest quality paper fibers around. And recovery rates for all paper grades are continuing to rise, and as supplies available decline, especially for printing and writing paper, cup fiber is very important to the paper industry. And the majority of paper cups are used for hot beverages and have poly coating on one side. And the poly coating allows the cup to withstand the high temperatures without breaking down. The challenge for mills in using cups and other poly coated packaging has always been time required in the hydropulper to remove the paper fiber from the poly layer. And you can see a hydropulper to the right-hand side here. So the innovation, cup challenge and new materials. And in order to identify more sustainable single-serve paper cups, Closed Loop Partners initiated the Next Generation Cup Challenge in 2018. And among the winning designs were companies proposing reusable cup systems. Several offered biodegradable plant-based materials for cup consideration, and others have proposed alternative barrier coatings that are more easily recyclable or compostable. The most common alternative to the polyethylene PE coatings are polylactate acid, PLA, and water-based coatings. PLA is a bioplastic made from plant-based materials such as sugars and starches, and they make the cups more compostable or biodegradable. The aqueous coating or water-dispersed emulsion polymer coatings can be used when a barrier layer doesn't require structural integrity on its own. And due to the different coating process, aqueous coatings tend to be thinner and more fiber might be available for recovered. These coatings are very new, and the market penetration at this point is still low for these alternatives. So here's a map of North America with the current end markets, both tissue and towel, recycled paperboard, container board for brown corrugated boxes, recycled fiber market, pulp, and building product boards. And one doesn't have to look at this chart, this map very long to say most of the domestic markets on the East. In the West, there are export markets available, and I'll talk about those a little later in the presentation. So Ashley mentioned the December 21st, 2021 Declaration of Acceptance of Cups, and the group of mills and end users got together to restate their intentions to buy cups and recovered paper cups. And these companies included Essity, tissue and towel producer, Georgia Pacific, Graphic Packaging, who we'll hear from on this presentation, and Great Lakes Paper, ND Paper, Pratt Industries, Sistana Fiber, and WestRock. And this group accounts for the use of more than 75% of the mixed paper demand in the US and Canada, and includes 31 paper mills that are now actively accepting cups and mixed paper. And the press release was very much a landmark thing, with the mills acknowledging that cups provide high quality fiber for recycling as raw material in their paper and board production. So I mentioned export markets in the past, and these are particularly important in the Western US, where they go to Asia. We export a sizable volume of our recovered paper from the US, although this has been going down as more domestic use comes on board, particularly true with mixed paper. And in 2020, 34% of the US's total recovered paper and mixed paper were exported. And Mexico and Asia are the most important export markets when it comes to recovered paper cups, with Korea, India, and Thailand being the largest country buyers in Asia. And the primary use of the cups containing grades in Asia and Mexico is for tissue and towel, just like we'll hear from Great Lakes. And export of recovered paper is a specialized part of the business, and a large percentage of it's handled by export brokers. And there are a number of brokers who will handle polycoated paper boards and have expressed interest in cups. And those folks are listed specifically in the white paper that's available out there right now. So growing sustainability as consumers and special interest groups pressure large chain restaurants and consumer packaged good brands to make packaging more recyclable. There's growing interest and activity in paper cup recycling. Food service organizations, communities, and consumers alike have expectations that more types of single-use packaging should be recycled in the future. And the response from many restaurant brands and other food service operators has been to develop sustainability goals for organizations in which packaging plays a major role. So to wrap up my presentation, significant progress has been made in the last 2 to 3 years since we've been working on that. At least 20 major residential curbside programs in the US, with hundreds of communities now explicitly accept paper cups. The 31 paper mills and 1 building product manufacturer now accept cups. And there's a significant opportunity to expand residential cup recovery further, both on the collection, MRF, and mill side. And cups go into mixed paper at most MRFs, but some are starting to do positive sorts into a carton or a cup bale or other polycoated paper boards, especially with the growth of optical sorting. And the biggest challenge actually at MRF is low volumes of cups and similar materials, and possibly combining some of these grades makes some sense to increase the volume. The use of alternative barrier coatings is expanding, and cups and other polycoated packaging will eventually become easier for mills to manage. And the growth of more easily recyclable coatings and cup materials in Europe suggests that there's potential for widespread adoption in the US also in the long term. So with that, I thank you for your presence, and we'll move forward.
All right, great. Thank you, Bill. Just as a quick follow-up question, since we have all of that information and still, digesting it, because wow, that was very insightful. What would you say, to drill down, what would you say is the one key takeaway from this white paper?
I think the thing that stands out to me is that there's been activity on all fronts, and almost equal activity from on the collection side with the community interest. And I really noticed that the attendees are very broad from all these categories. And then interest by the collectors and work at the MRF, and then a significant amount of work at the mills. So it's been across the board effort, and you need all those components to make for a successful recycling campaign.
Great, thank you. And yes, if anybody hasn't seen the white paper yet, Melissa, I believe she linked that in the chat. So check it out there if you haven't already. And then, yes, I keep seeing the chat. Feel free, please put questions in the question and answer section to the call-in on the phone. If you're calling in, we will have slides available. We'll be sending that out. And then also this presentation is being recorded. So that will be available. That will be sent to you once that is ready. But up next, we have Julie LaFond, plant engineer at Great Lakes Tissue. Julie holds a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from Michigan Tech. Go Huskies. And she is actually both a plant engineer and a general project manager. Prior to Great Lakes, she has over a decade of experience in the paper industry, such as Appian and Pixel, and most recently the Verso Corporation as a paper machine superintendent in Escanaba, Michigan. And so I will turn it over to you, Julie.
All right. As Ashley said, I represent Great Lakes Tissue. We are located in northern Michigan, right on the Sheboygan River. We are a small family-owned paper mill. We started life in the 1950s as a Charmin plant, and then transitioned to Procter & Gamble ownership. And then the current owners purchased the mill in 1993 with the help of some investors, and then the plant was converted to 100% recycle operation in 1995. We've always had cups as a portion of our furnish, but that's we use a pretty wide variety of materials. But I'll cover that a little bit later in the presentation. So we make a wide variety of materials. We ship out a converted product as well as parent rolls to other converters. We do toilet paper, paper towel, center pole towels, napkins, and we target primarily the away from home market. So that's anything from schools, prisons, airports, gas stations, anywhere where you're going to be using toilet paper where it's not in your home. We do about $10 million a year in sales in converted products, and then we do about $8 million a year in sales of parent rolls that go to other converters that then put their stamp on it and then sell our products under their name. So as far as the materials and the processing of what we do, we have a pretty robust system. So unfortunately, we are able to accept a wider variety of materials than a lot of places that use 100% recycled materials. We get a lot of the stuff that other people just aren't able to process. We do mechanical separation, so there's no de-inking of the material. We use everything from pre and post-consumer materials, post-industrial clippings, cups, aseptic and gable top cartons, virgin scraps, and then of course we reuse every bit of our internal broke that's generated from our process. We get, depending on what blend of furnish we're running and how efficiently our recycle area is running on any given day, we get about a 70% yield of fiber extraction from what we're putting in. And right now we average about 2,100 tons a month of incoming furnace, just to give you an idea of the size of our operation. Right now we source all of our furnish from Canada, except for 2 or 3 trucks a year we get from the Emmett County recycling facility. We would take as much as they will give us, but that it's on a quarterly basis because that is how long it actually takes for them to accumulate a truck full to make it logistically practical to ship a truck over to us of the cartons and cups. We usually use about 25% cups as part of our furnish. We would like to use more if we can because we get a great fiber yield from cups compared to some of our other materials that we take in. They're also quite a bit cleaner, and we just get we get a really good fiber yield from cups compared to other materials. However, just due to market conditions and which the price of cups has, from even last year to this year, has gone through the ceiling, and it's mainly driven by transportation costs and the fact that we get all of our material from Canada. So what do we do with the poly that is extracted from our process? So we a year ago, the poly coming out of our process was about 65% moisture. So that's a very, very wet material. There's a lot of free water in it. So it's very impractical and very expensive to transport, whether you're sending it to a landfill or whether you're sending it to a potential end user that could reuse it into something else. So we, working with Eagle, the Carton Council of North America, and then also MDARD, we were able to receive grant funds to purchase a high density extruder. So it presses the water out of the poly, and at the start of the project, we had a target of 25% moisture. Following project completion, we were actually able to reach a target of 17% moisture. So this creates a drier, fluffier material, but it makes it a lot more practical to transport long distances. It makes the material more attractive to potential end reusers, you can call it. And we've reaped a lot of savings in transportation and also reduction in greenhouse gases because we're able to put 2 to 3 times more material per single trailer than we would have been not having to transport as much water. We also, as part of the grant project, purchased a stationary compactor and a walking floor trailer. So again, now that the material is much drier and fluffier, the benefit of the compactor is that we're able to really maximize the volume of the material that we are getting in to every trailer load. So with the minimal amount of water, we've been reaping a lot of savings and benefits on transport of the material. So just a summary just of the project results. We, as I mentioned, we started with a 65% moisture of the poly. Our goal was 25%, and we've been averaging around 17. So that's a reduction on average of 3,500 tons of water that we're not shipping every year. So as a small family-owned business, that's huge for us to have the extra capital, whether it's to invest in other equipment or every dollar makes a big difference when you're working for a small family-owned company. We've also got, as I mentioned, increased market demand from the poly being drier and also just cleaner and in general, just a better quality material, and savings on transportation costs and greenhouse gas reduction. So just to bring the conversation back to the cups, the biggest thing for us that we would like to see in the future as a company would be to see more legislation and more recycling infrastructure in Michigan, or just domestically in general, so that we could possibly be sourcing more of our furnish from the area, because it's, the transportation costs are a killer, and we know that the materials are out there, but they're just not being recycled as heavily domestically as they are in Canada, because we don't have the legislation that compares to what they're doing. So thank you, everybody. And there's my email if you have any questions, or if you want to reach out and make a connection. And thank you. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Julie. That was amazing to hear about what you do with the poly lining. So with that, thank you again, Julie. With that, last but certainly not least, we have Mike Farrel, EVP of Mills Division from Graphic Packaging International. Mike has held several positions with GPI, including Senior VP of Supply Chain, Vice President of Recycled Board Mills, Senior Manufacturing Manager, and General Manager. So you've been around a lot of cups, Mike. So I'll hand it over to you to talk about GPI's journey. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. And thanks to everybody who's on this webinar. Just like to start with an overview of graphic packaging. You can go to the next slide. We're an international company producing over 4 million tons of paperboard yearly on three different substrates, two virgin substrates, which is SBS, or solid bleached sulfate, and CUK, which is our coated unbleached kraft board. And then we also make coated recycled board. We are the largest folding carton company in the world, with 25,000 employees, 114 manufacturing locations globally. We have a very strong U.S. presence with 8 paper mills and 63 converting plants in the United States. We recover over 1.5 million tons of paperboard annually in our mill system. And we are also the #1 converter of paperboard in Europe, with 43 converting plants in 18 countries. About 2 years ago, we developed our Vision 2025 goals. And these goals were meant to stretch our company to deliver on key initiatives that keeps our company growing, engages our workforce, and supports environmentally sustainable operations. Our new mill in Kalamazoo, which was just started up this month, was designed with these end goals in mind. The new CRB machine employs the latest technology to reduce energy usage, greenhouse gas emissions, and water consumption while producing America's highest quality CRB. We invested in a state-of-the-art recycling system to provide furnish for our 3 machines here in Kalamazoo, adding significant screening and cleaning capability to support recycling a wide range of fiber sources. This mill site alone will use over 1 million tons of recycled fiber a year. In short, we're committed to making a world of difference and contribute to a healthier planet for the next generation by improving our recycling efforts and reducing our energy impact, especially at our paper mills. As the world's largest fiber-based packaging company, we have a significant interest in and responsibility to promote recycling, recovery, and a circular economy. In our models of using both sustainably sourced wood and recycled fiber helps us support the circular economy. And by adding cup stock into our acceptable recycled materials, we can recover and recycle even more fiber in the United States. The U.S. already recycles about 63% of the paper made in our country. To get an even higher percentage, we need to look at different sources of fiber that has not traditionally been recycled. Recycling paper cups has been a strategic journey for us, and these efforts started even before we purchased the mill system for our SBS mills and our cup producing plants. We've run a series of trials over the years to confirm the ability to process this material in our mills. These trials included recycling cups from a marathon, cups collected from a major fast food restaurant system, and we were able to take these cups and similar to other fiber streams, recycle these straight into our mill system, and had no adverse effects on either the throughput of the stock prep or the quality of the paperboard. All these tests were supported with the help of Western Michigan University, who tested the recyclability of these paper cups for us and some of the finished properties. As I said, there's been no issues incorporating these cups into our fiber system. We've been accepting this material into our mixed paper for about 3 years now, and we love to process more cup stock to keep the paper cups out of our landfill. Kind of a short presentation, but happy to take some questions on that as we finish up.
Yeah, definitely. We have a lot of questions coming in, so that's great. Thank you. So Mike, just for you specifically, so how has adding paper cups, like how has it helped move your graphic packaging, like your circularity goals and trying to be more sustainable? Could you just speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So when we purchased the 2 SBS mills and the cup producing plants from IP 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago now, but time flies. You know, those mills produce about 1 million tons a year of SBS, and about half of that production goes into our cup plants. So we have a very vested interest in being able to recover that and to support the recycling of those cup stocks, because we're such a large producer of that. So being able to take that back into our mill system, close that loop, and recover, you know, which is pretty valuable fiber, is certainly a bonus for us.
Yeah, that's great. And then there was a question in the Q&A about cup to cup recycling. Has GPI done anything regarding cup to cup, or?
We use some post-consumer recycled material in our SBS mills, but generally speaking, the only place where we're actively recovering cup stock right now is straight into our recycled mills.
Got it. Great. Thank you. Okay, so now we are moving into our Q&A portion of the presentation. So if you guys, I'd ask the panelists to come off mute and turn on their video. We have a lot of great questions to ask. And I think I'll start with Bill. I'll kind of move back to you because there's a lot of questions about a lot of technical questions, which is really great. So maybe if we could start, you know, there's a lot of what about the West Coast? I know you talked about the West Coast a little bit. There's not a lot of mills over there on that mill, end markets mill that you showed. It's kind of like essentially a black hole, it feels like. So can you just, like, why isn't there, you know, recycling, you know, anything over there for end markets?
Sure. So there are less total paper mills in the Western US than other parts of the country. And actually there's no de-inking mills at all. So even assorted office paper that's collected in the West goes offshore. But the offshore Asian markets have always been strong for the West Coast, and they continue to be. Korea, some Japan, Taiwan, and Southeast Asia. And I saw a question about China sword, about why should we be trying to add materials and potential contaminants to recovered paper with national sword. The China use of our paper is clearly in the rearview mirror to us now. We've replaced all that capacity with domestic and other Asian countries, and they are happy buyers of it. And the China story for recovered paper in the US is history.
Yeah, great. And I would also, you know, add to that, you know, a lot of our focus for these mills and that end market map is domestic. Like we want to make sure that those products, you know, we want to keep them domestic as much as we can. So that's why the focus is domestic mills. So great.
Actually, I would add that the Pacific Northwest mills, I expect we'll see some activity out there. There's a lot of growth in the Pacific Northwest and the containerboard sector that we could see them potentially using cups too.
Great. Yep. And Mike, what were you going to say?
I was just going to add, you know, the demand for paper is increasing in the United States and North America in general. Certainly in Europe and the rest of the world people are phasing away from plastic. So domestically, we're going to see even more demand for recovered paper going forward. So those markets are going to continue to be strong and robust.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear. Okay, so Julie, I'm going to ask you, we've had a lot of questions on the what the Polycoat. That's great process. Get a lot of questions on that too, outside of this, but what do you so it's dried, and then where does it go? Like what do you guys do with it after you dry it?
Well, currently we have one company that we're partnered with, and that's St. Mary's Cement over in Charlevoix, Michigan, and they use it as fuel in their kiln within their cement plant, and that offsets burning coal as fuel. So you wouldn't think, but burning plastic is actually a lot cleaner than burning coal. So there's even some greenhouse gas savings that we get from that. I do a lot of work there's kind of two other avenues besides the use as fuel avenue. I do a lot of work with like direct and I'll call them reusers, everything from building materials, so tracks, and I'm working with a company right now called Continuous Materials. They're doing a lot of R&D work with our material, pet products. Even we've been working with a company that makes reusable pallets out of our material. So because we just finished up the grant project at the end of last year, there had been quite a few samples sent out in years prior of our material, but nobody was very interested in working with us because the material was so wet that everybody's first question was, okay, well, it's not going to be practical or feasible to pay the transportation to ship it. And even if we do ship it, then we have to figure out a way to dry it, right, as an end user. So now that it's dry, I'm working with a lot of end users we have communicated with before that didn't have an interest, but now that we have a cleaner, drier material, there's a lot of interest in the product. The other kind of lane or group of people that I work with are technology research and development companies that they're not actually the end user themselves, but they take our material and they do a lot of bench scale R&D work to try to figure out how else it could be used, and then they market that technology to other end users. So we're still in the early phases of kind of remarketing this material that's been the quality's been improved, and just the practicality of shipping it farther places before has been significantly improved. So
Great, thank you. So there's also, and this is for probably Julie or Mike, a misconception that PLA lined cups can't be recycled. Do you guys have any issues with PLA versus the polyethylene coated, or just speak to that a little bit?
We certainly don't see any difference in the two.
yeah, no, same for us.
No, okay, that's great. Okay, so I think this one's for Mike as well. Could you just expand on just kind of reiterate what products that you're making from the cups that you accept? Are they actual what products are they? Being new boxes like cereals or bags, anything like that?
So in our CRB system, coated recycled board system, which is where all the poly cups are being recycled, we make think dry food packaging mostly, which is cereal boxes, tissue boxes, hardware boxes, things like that. So kind of center the grocery aisle store items, so anything from Pop-Tarts, Bagos to and food packaging.
Okay, great, thank you. And then this question, it looks like it's for Bill. It's talking about bales and bale specs. Why hasn't paper cups been added to other bale specs? I know I can give my anecdote that FPI, we've been working on this for a number of years, probably almost a decade at this point, to get cups added. I actually was on a webinar with Robin Wiener yesterday, and she was saying from ISRI, and she was saying that the bale specs reflect the market, and that's what we're trying to do. But we're trying to get the marketplace so that we can have that bale spec. But Bill, you're more technical than I am, so you can please speak to that a little bit.
Sure. So as we see more cups get into the recycling stream, there are options for cup-related bale specifications. And I'll answer a second question that was related to this. People talking about downcycling, and SOP, that certainly isn't a downcycle because those are very valuable grades right now. And that's really a decision between the MRF and the marketplace as to what grade the cups belong in, and it's a cost, economic, and sustainability issue about how it should flow through to the right and correct bale.
Okay, great. All right, well, let's talk about, I think this, Bill, this might be more for you again, is there's a couple questions regarding, the percentage of paper cups in a bale. And, do you see adding, paper cups to bales? Is that considered sustainable? Is that, considered enough? And Julie and Mike, please, add in if you have anything regarding that.
Sure. So, as we see more cups be recycled, they'll become a larger percentage potentially of bales. And looking forward with all the expansions coming in the U.S. recycle industry, e-commerce driving the corrugated box business is driving the recovered paper supply business. And we really need to get all the fiber that we can get for all the new mill projects that are out there. So I think that's number one. And number two, depending on, again, the individual mills and economics, the cups will flow to its best and the highest value usage.
Okay.
For the individual mills, it kind of depends on what kind of pulping and cleaning systems that they have installed. Where we've invested heavily in our stock preparation systems with screening and cleaning systems to be able to separate plastic from the fiber. We can recover 90% of the paper cup fiber that's in a polycoated cup, and then the rest of that would go to landfill as it separates out. But certainly that's better, to collect 90% of that fiber than throwing 100% of it away.
Yeah, definitely. And like, as Bill mentioned earlier, there's a large demand from a lot of companies and organizations that want to see this material recovered, not even, just on the brand and the manufacturing side, but also the mills as well, because you want that material back. So thank you. So there are, let's see, there's a couple ways we could go here, but maybe I'll kind of pitch this to, and maybe this was kind of getting to where I was going, but Bill, what is really changed in the last 5 years that, the mills are willing to accept paper cups, mills that also don't really have a vested interest in paper cups, what is that? What is that? Where did that switch flip?
Well, we've come through a couple of different phases. I mentioned the China sword and the China situation. China was a big buyer of U.S. fiber in the middle from the year 2000 up to about 2015. And then when they cut back, that required some changing to the system. And one thing is that MRFs are producing cleaner material across the board, whether it be in their OCC or in their mixed paper. So it makes it easier to use domestically. And mills have been investing in the stock preparation systems, like Mike talked about. All the new mills that are being built plan on, for the most part, plan on using mixed paper and can certainly use cups in that mixed paper bale. So it's been a series of things that affected both the end marketplace globally, U.S. domestic paper industry growth, and the MRF ability to make cleaner material.
Okay, great. So there is a question regarding clarification. So they're saying none of the mills that are now accepting paper cups end up sending their plastic layer waste to landfill. I'm not sure if, Julie, I know you Great Lakes Tissue, you guys, are able to recover it. I mean, Mike, what does this graphic do with the poly?
that's all, and it ends up in our scrap piles and goes to landfill along with the glass and the metal and the other rejects that we comes out of the recycled material we collect.
Yeah.
I would
So
say,
Ashley, go ahead, Julie.
I would just say to clarify, so traditionally before we installed the new equipment, that material was mixed in with our biosolids from our water treatment plant and all of our just general plant waste. And so it was all landfilled. Now we are in the process of, we've got designated areas to store the dry poly. So as much of it that can go to end users for, R&D work or to St. Mary's, as much as we can send there, we do. We do also end up sending a portion to the landfill to help fill out our trucks because our sludge is so heavy. We cannot send a full 50 foot walking floor trailer full of sludge to the landfill because it would be so heavy. So we use it as a filler material in that case.
So actually, I was going to add that, if we look to Europe, it's much more common in Europe to take stock prep residue, which is high in plastics, for use for energy. And that's because energy costs are higher and disposal costs are higher in Europe. Energy costs on a trend line basis in North America is not going down any, and disposal costs are certainly coming up. So we might see more fuel applications come for the poly scrap going forward.
Yeah, for us in the short term, it's not only is it, do we have somebody who's partnered with us and they're invested and we're growing this partnership. St. Mary's Cement did a big expansion last year on their feed system. So they're able to accept larger volumes and a wider range of materials, and all of that that they're doing is to proactively seek out other materials to offset coal usage because they're trying to move away from coal. So for them, it's a benefit because they're proactively doing that instead of waiting until the writing on the wall where coal is just, it's slowly going away, right, as a fuel source. But it also is a huge savings for us because we're only paying transportation costs for the poly to go to St. Mary's versus what we would pay for that same size load to go to the landfill, where you're then paying a tipping fee as well. So not only is it ending up somewhere else where somebody's actually able to put it to good use, we're avoiding that that material ending up in a landfill. So for us, it's a no-brainer. But in my mind, I don't see that there's ever going to be a like a pie in the sky one solution. This is where all of our poly goes. In the real world, it's probably, as we're remarketing this material that's been like upgraded and the quality is improved and it's much more usable, where we're at a year from now, 2 years from now. In a perfect world, if none of our poly was going to the landfill, it will be because we have a variety of end uses for it, whether it's partially fuel, several end users, something like that, right? So I'm constantly seeking out a wide variety of solutions because I think in the end, we're going to end up with a combination of a couple different things. I don't think it's realistic to figure out one application for all the material to go to. So
I think the other thing that's really becoming a game changer is to switch away from poly to materials that are recyclable, compostable, and biodegradable. So in our company, we've developed a cup that doesn't use any PE extrusion coating on the paperboard called OptiCycle, but as a water-based polymer system to give the same holdout properties as PE, but it's 100% recyclable. So you won't. I think in the future there's going to be more work in that, and I think the PE portion of this is going to take care of itself.
Yeah. Wow. Great. Thank you guys. So staying along with, the recycling. And so for paper cups, what are you guys, as, Julie, Mike, Bill, what are you guys doing to, promote the, what's being done for recycled cups? I can talk to FPI and what we're doing as an industry. We work with communities, we work with MRFs and mills, kind of like talked about in the beginning of this presentation, that to educate residents where we're getting paper cups to be added. And so, if you're a community, talk to your MRF about it. If you're a MRF, talk to your mill about it and see, what can be done in regards of paper food service packaging. But, Mike and Julie and Bill, what's being done for you guys?
For graphic, I know we're working with our end use customers, you know, the fast food places, the coffee houses, things like that, about, you know, how do you collect in the store, and but also working with the, like, you know, in Kalamazoo here, where we recycle the most, you know, working with our local suppliers to let them know that that's okay if there's cup stock that's coming in with the news or the newspaper. So that's mostly it's about communication, and you know that we have to educate the American public. You go to Japan and Europe, and you know they're used to having several different bins to separate and segregate, and you know we kind of just throw it all into hopefully not the garbage can, but at least into it's one big blue box, and you know that makes it more difficult to recycle. But to that end, you know we've had to invest in our stock prep cleaning system so that we can deal with that. So you know, Bill said earlier, as more mills do that, as we learn to recover, you know, the lower grade fibers, the stuff that's harder to recover, you know, we have to educate people that it's okay to put that in those blue boxes.
So from one sector, I think we're going to see more uses in tissue and towel, and Great Lakes is a good example. And Great Lakes is a poly capable mill, and that's why they were kind of in at the ground floor on this. But as we use less and less hard copy papers, a lot of the away from home tissue business is based on office papers and sorted office paper, and that grade is declining the supply at a more rapid rate than the use. And polycoated paper boards are a perfect example of being able to use that. And I think we'll see more and more tissue mills interested in those types of grades with cups included.
You know, for Great Lakes Tissue, we have a little bit of a roadblock because all of our furnish essentially that we source is from Canada. So we don't have those, you know, regional relationships with where it's coming from or what their recycling programs are like. I have a very close relationship with Lindsay Walker, who runs the Emmett County facility. And, you know, we do as much as we can between the two of us and, you know, in our organizations. On a positive note, it's been really beneficial for Great Lakes Tissue to be able to have the partnerships with Eagle, with MDARD, and then also the Carton Council of North America, because they are, you know, they're the ones that they've got the resources and they've got, you know, the ideas and kind of the push to help maybe some of the legislation get through so that we can then actually put those things into application. You know, where we're a small mill, we don't really have the resources to be, you know, advertising or connecting, or just we're in kind of an isolated position, but those relationships really are opening a lot of doors with us, whether it's for exploring new materials that we can accept, or whether it's finding other end reusers for the poly.
All right. Yes, Julie, definitely building bridges and partnerships is key to a lot of the work that we do. So fully agree there. We are pretty much close to time. So I want to thank our panelists again for joining us today. A lot of great information that has been shared today, a lot of great questions. So thank you to the audience. It's just, I had a hard time getting through them all. So with that, if you guys have any questions, you know, feel free to reach out to myself, Ashley Elzinga, or any of the panelists. Recyclepapercups.org has all of the information that we were talking about today on this webinar with the mill statement and white paper. And with that, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. So thank you.